going to another groups on technology and innovation, you need to leave and to go to another group. So, colleagues, trade and investment are key for features of Goal 17 and are priority areas for countries in North and Central Asia. Situated at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, countries in the sub-region have immense training potential, which is hindered by connectivity issues. Aside from hard infrastructure, countries in the sub-region can further explore the potential of digitalization to streamline cross-border trade processes, with neighboring countries increasingly committing to decarbonization their economies. Countries in the sub-region will need to start also need to develop investment promotion strategies that are sustainable and can facilitate economic diversification and transformation. And objectives of this session, it will discuss partnerships for cross-border connectivity and knowledge sharing in North and Central Asia. Specifically, it will look into aspects of trade and investment, as I mentioned, and it will contribute to sharing of national experiences along with challenges faced in implementing partnerships related to cross-border connectivity and knowledge sharing, identification and development of potential partnerships to accelerate sub-regional and regional trade and investment activities, identification of cross-border and sub-regional challenges in implementing SDGs and means of implementation to overcome these challenges, and formulation of potential solution and mechanism then can enhance partnerships in North and Central Asia, as well as North-South, South-South, and triangular cooperation. So, colleagues, I have in my list a number of speakers, and first in my list Vitada Anuk Vataka is Economic Affairs Officer with Trade and Investment and Innovation Division. Prior to joining ESCAP, she served in the private sector and academia, and she holds PhD in economics from University of Melbourne. And also Vanika Sharma is consultant with Trade and Investment Innovation Division of ESCAP. She is an economist with who worked on variety of trade and investment related projects with organizations like UNCTAD, European Center for International Political Economy, UNDP China, and Center for Policy Research in India. I would like to give the floor to Vitada and Vanika for presentation. Over to you.
Thank you, Nikolay, and greeting from ESCAP Bangkok. I'm from Trade, Investment and Innovation Division, as mentioned by Nikolay, and I would like to share my screen to let you see what I'm talking about. The discussion of mine today would be about performance of North and Central Asia on trade and investment, and also how these have implications on achieving SDGs by the sub-regions. As you know that the path of achieving SDG have relied very much on trade and investments as a means of implementation. And the regions in general, except certain sub-regions like East Asia, Southeast Asia, using these means of implementations is not always easy. Many things has to be readjust and catch up with the big players in the regions who have already advanced participations in the supply chains, value chains, and now they are being advanced in the digital aspects as well. So the process of catching up is the gap is large, and then we have pandemic, which make the process get even more difficult. So the presentations of mine today would give you the ideas of how the recent trends in trade investment in the context of North and Central Asia is look like. Before then we go into the implications as per time around. Looking at the performance in the recent period, we had a big depressed situation last year when the pandemic hit. Coming to this year, in nominal terms, from trade point of view, it seems to be quite a big recovery because we see more than double-digit growth in trade by the world and by Asia Pacific regions. North and Central Asia even more dynamic. The export growth of the regions reached 30%, one of the highest over the past many years ago, since the crisis, the previous crisis. But this is driven by price effects mainly. As you may aware, the increasing of oil price, increase of commodity price, food price, as well as the impact of fiscal stimulus is taking effect on high inflation. And that basically drove the growth of export and import values in the regions as well as in North and Central Asia this year. When we remove this price effect, the growth of trade came down to 7 to 8%. North and Central Asia is still on a good terms because the sub-region is growing higher than the regional average. But the question is whether this good development is going to last for long. This may be not very well prospect because next year we think supply adjustments will happen. So inflation will be slowed down. Demand might be slowing down because of taking out of the fiscal stimulus in many countries is expected. So we will not, we probably not see high nominal growth of trade as much as this year. But in real term, maybe it's not very different. It might be slightly increased. However, all of this is pending provisionally on the high uncertainties of the pandemic and global financial situations. There is increasing risk of global financial instability, as you may follow up lately with the crypto assets, with the Chinese financial sectors, real estate sectors, and high inflations in the US. So these add very strong uncertainties to the predictions, and we hope that there will not be a big explosions happen next year that's gonna turn things back to serious situations again. However, the recovery on the service side is not looking very well, except certain sectors like digital related sectors. Digital sector is benefit from the big shift on digitalization. Digital trade, working from home, online business has been growing. So that affect positive accelerator to financial service and ICT service, and somewhat on logistics service. But for traditional service like travel related or tourism specifically, it's still very big depressed. If we're looking at countries in North and Central Asia, many countries relied on tourism exports, and some of them are in a big negative impact. We found that in the Q1, country like Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia has lost more than 80% of their tourism exports compared to the same period of last year. How partnership would be help in this kind of situations? Regional trade agreement, regional cooperation frameworks, in principle, could provide mechanisms. But for North and Central Asia regions, these regional trade agreements mechanism is not so much, especially when we look into the context of integrate with the rest of Asia Pacific. In terms of the numbers of trade agreements, the sub-region has only 60 agreements when the whole region has more than 300. And the agreements that they have so far only account about 45% of trade in North and Central Asian country. More also with the type of agreements, because to make trade agreements more effective to help the sub-regions achieving SDGs, it has to provide mechanisms to go into environmental provisions, labor provisions, collaborations on social and environmental issues, right? That means trade agreements have to cover more than liberalizing goods. But in the current state, most of agreements that the North and Central Asian countries hold so far is still focusing on goods. So it is still limited use of potential in using regional trade agreements to leverage into collaborations that will help the countries and their partners to achieve together in more sustainable development perspective. Trade with the Asia Pacific region itself is also not a big part for North and Central Asian sub-regions. Compared to other sub-regions, North and Central Asia is one of the least integrated with the rest of Asia Pacific. So far, it's about 45% of the sub-region's total trade that happen with Asia Pacific countries. How we could fix this? For trade facilitation is one of the mechanisms which in general North and Central Asia is highly interested in, and the sub-regions done pretty well compared to the regional average. On average, the sub-region has achieved over 70% of the implementations according to ESCAP global survey on trade facilitations. It might vary between countries. Some countries do very well, achieving more than 80%, and then some country is still at about 50 or 60%. So this gap has to be closed by more efficient in improving trade facilitation implementation, especially the dimensions on cross-border paperless trade is the dimensions that huge gap happens. Implementations on this particular domain is still less than 60% in most cases. According to our study, we estimate that if there is the full implementation of trade facilitation framework, including digital and cross-border digital trade facilitation, it could reduce the cost of trade of the sub-regions by 30% on average. 13% on average. Next will be about investment, which my colleague will explain. Vanika?
Thank you, Vidada. I'm just going to try to share my screen. I think, Vidada, you'll have to stop sharing. So I will now cover the investment trends in the North and Central Asia region. Firstly, looking at inward FDI to the region, we see that FDI stock in the region has increased since 2010. It increased from $590 billion in 2010 to $730 billion in 2019. This increase was led by all the countries in the region, excluding Russia. Russia's share of FDI stock over the period either decreased or remained relatively constant. When looking at flows, on the other hand, inward flows have been more volatile. They've seen a minor decrease since the 2010 level, but were rebounding in 2018 through 2019. On excluding Russia, the trend becomes less volatile and is constantly decreasing, except for in 2010, 2013, and 2015, when there are slight increases. If we look at greenfield FDI, we get a more tangible understanding of what has been happening in North and Central Asia in the last 10 years. And it also gives us a better idea of what the impact of COVID has been. So it provides us with a more tangible understanding because we're looking at just the FDI projects, that is the actual projects in the countries in the region. Greenfield FDI flows also give us a good understanding of the future outlook for FDI in the region. So the total greenfield in the region has been very volatile over the period again. This has been because of commodity price shocks and also the existing geopolitical climate in the region. And it saw considerable declines in 2013 and also closer to 2018. For most countries in the region, there has not been any significant investment in greenfield projects. Only Azerbaijan and Russia have been the countries receiving substantial investment to drive the current trend. Greenfield investment in the region also has most prominently targeted the commodities and natural resources sector. But because the COVID-19 pandemic hit these sectors the hardest, with plunging oil prices as well as decrease in demand for commodities, it's negatively affected investment in the region. Finally, as you all know, FDI is a principal means of financing the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and also the corresponding 17 SDGs. FDI can contribute to sustainable development in several important ways. So this includes through expanding access to markets, bringing in foreign exchange, contributing to skills development, human capital growth, technology transfer, and increasing competition in local markets. It can also support indigenous industry upgrading in host economies and facilitate their enhanced participation in global value chains. Given all of this, in recent years, increased attention has been paid to concepts of sustainable FDI. What is sustainable FDI? It is basically FDI that contributes to sustained economic growth, is socially inclusive and environmentally sustainable, or FDI that follows responsible business conduct and contributes to sustainable development. Here we have some of the most important sectors in which countries can target to attract FDI so that it contributes to sustainable development. So these include power, transport, telecommunications, water and sanitation, food security and agriculture, climate change, ecosystems, health and education. However, there's recent varying evidence which suggests that policymakers and investment promotion agencies need to harness the transformative power of FDI quickly. Average returns on FDI in developing countries fell from around 11% at the start of the last decade to 8% during 2016 and 2018. This implies a sharply reduced premium on all FDI projects. Although returns have remained higher in Asia, many economies in the region have since seen a decline in FDI and decline in the returns investors receive from the FDI they undertake. This should be a red flag for policymakers because declining returns on sustainable FDI projects may discourage further investment in sustainable FDI at a time when it is needed the most. So what can be done to increase the flow and returns to FDI? There are several things that can be done, but here I'm going to mention two that fit within the context of this forum. The first one is governments, together with the support of international organizations, should identify which policies and practices must change in order to support more sustainable FDI. Countries also need to target FDI in their own key SDG sectors, and in doing so, they need to ensure the financial and fiscal incentives provided for FDI are going towards these FDI projects instead of into non-SDG related projects. Relatedly, new approaches to attracting FDI need to be utilized. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear Vitada and Vanika, for excellent presentation on trade and investment in North and Central Asia. I think it's very thought-provoking, and I would like to give now the floor to my good friend from Economic Cooperation Organization, Dr. Said Yahya Al-Khalaki, the Deputy Secretary General of Economic Cooperation Organization, supervising transport and communication, human resources and sustainable development directorates, and he has vast experience working previously as Director General of Transit and Trade Facilitation of the Ministry of Industry and Commerce of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, and he cooperated and worked in different organizations, including USAID, GIZ, and other development partners. Over to you, Dr. Said.
Thank you very much, my esteemed friend, Mr. Nicolai, and I'm glad that after a long time I see you here in this important meeting. I also say hello to everyone, ladies and gentlemen. It is a privilege to join you today. My colleagues in IT team, they are trying to display my presentation, but I prefer to start my words. In adopting the Sustainable Development Goals in 2015, leaders around the world sought to promote a universal, rules-based, open, non-discriminatory and equitable multilateral trading system under the World Trade Organization. As you are aware, the Economic Cooperation Organization is a 10-member regional intergovernmental organization seeking to promote greater economic integration and socio-economic development within a region of 500 million inhabitants. One of the main objectives of our organization, as per the Izmir Treaty and or EcoVision 2025, is to expand intra-regional and inter-regional trade and investment. We are currently working on trade facilitation and expansion of trade through progressive tariff liberalization within the Eco-Trade Agreement, also known as Eco-Trade Agreement, ECOTA, signed in 2003. The agreement seeks to establish a mechanism to reinforce economic cooperation through the elimination of non-tariff barriers, reduction of tariffs, and the exchange of concessions within the region. The leaders of the ECO member states have put greater emphasis on promoting an environment conducive to trade and investment within the region through removing non-technical barriers and taking effective trade facilitation measures in customs clearance. The Eco-Clearing Union would facilitate ensuring better conditions for payments in the region while promoting financial and monetary cooperation within the region. The Clearing Union would also imbibe predictability, transparency, and uniformity to the trade-related payment systems and reduce the cost of transactions as well as cut on hidden costs. The global call to action for positive change also sought to significantly increase the exports of developing countries, in particular with a view to doubling the least developed countries' share of global exports by 2020. I am happy to inform that intra-regional trade has been growing steadily. During the 7-year period of 2001 to 2018, the value of the trade within the eco-region increased from $7.2 billion in 2001 to $60.2 billion in 2018, as you see in the monitor, which accounts for an average annual growth rate of 11%, surpassing the global trade growth of 7%. In 2018, the total trade of the ECO members with the rest of the world stood $798 billion. However, and unfortunately, only 2% of the value of global trade belongs to the ECO members, even as the share of the ECO members in world trade has increased from 1.1% in 2001 to 2% in 2018. So the share of the ECO members in world trade is less than the potential of this region. During 2019, the trade volume of the ECO region with the rest of the world declined to $708.9 billion, of which $331.6 billion were exports and $377.3 billion were imports. At present, with a population of around 500 million, an area of 8 million square kilometers, the contribution of our member states to global trade has been $661 billion in 2020, with export and import standing at $289.6 $376.78 billion and $371.4 billion, respectively. Intra-regional trade for 2020 hovered around $49.8 billion, accounting for 7.5% of the region's global trade. Lack of complementaries among member states and high cost of doing business and higher cost in intra-regional trade are often quoted as the main reasons for the low level of intra-regional trade. The organization has sought to assist member states in boosting trade within and outside of the region. Customs cooperation and facilitation, taxation cooperation and exchange of information, insurance coverage, ease of doing business and trade, and robust financial management have been promoted within our region. We expect that the volume of the intra-regional trade will increase substantially as envisaged in ECO Vision 2025 through regional value chains and implementation of the agreed legal and institutional frameworks such as the ECO Trade Agreement and the ECO Agreement on Promotion and Protection of Investment and Trade Facilitation Agreements on Custom Cooperation and ECO Reinsurance Company. Connectivity will play a pivotal role in this ambitious vision, as expanding trade and development within the region cannot be possible without promoting better connectivity measures, which would assist the collective enhancement of trade competitiveness within the region. Trade creation and trade diversion. Yes, I say trade creation and trade diversion under the ECO Trade Agreement that I already informed you, and the promotion of investment among special economic zones and free trade zones can create more trade flows that here in Secretariat we are following up with the member states to achieve these two important goals, trade creation and trade diversion under the ECOTA. While clearing systems will facilitate transparent, predictable, and cost-effective trade-related financial flows, which will in turn contribute to economic growth within the region and contribute to facilitating market access. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm sure that our discussion in this forum will reach us to fruitful conclusions. And thank you again to my esteemed friend, Mr. Nicolai.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aklaki, for your inspiring and very informative presentation. I fully agree with many points which you mentioned, and of course, ECO trade agreement is very important for our sub-region. We need to promote and to strengthen it through paperless trade framework agreement developed by ESCAP. I think it can only enhance all trade agreements in our sub-region and facilitate our trade. Of course, I also agree with you that just 661 billion, it's very small amount. And intra-regional trade, which you mentioned, just about 50 billion, it's nothing for our vast sub-region. I must tell you, we also did some years ago research on potential in trade and cooperation between North and Central Asia and South Asia. And I must tell you, we were surprised that we found huge untapped potential in this trade, even despite, as you mentioned, lack of complementarities in the trade items and goods. Never mind, there is great potential for expanding trade, intra-regional trade among our countries. And I think the issue of transport, trade, ICT, and energy connectivity between different subregions are very important, because many of our member states are landlocked. This is my observation, and full support to your activities, and we are hoping this year we will sign a MOU which will only enhance our cooperation in different areas. Over to you, Dr. Aklaki.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nicolai. Let me start from the last point regarding MOU. In 18th of October, we have our monthly Council of Permanent Representatives meeting. And we put in the agenda of this meeting renewing MOU between ECO and ESCAP. And I personally don't see any issues for objecting. I'm sure that all esteemed ambassadors will approve for renewing and enhancing cooperation between ECO and ESCAP. And I believe that if ECO and ESCAP jointly conduct projects in terms of trade facilitation, in terms of streamlining connectivity among countries that we believe that Central Asian countries are those countries that have good investment potential, connectivity potential. I'm sure that ECO and ESCAP can jointly work on this kind of projects to bring facilitations for trade, investment, and connectivity. We are ready to work with ESCAP, and we believe in the valuable and very productive capacity of ESCAP, and my team is ready to work with you regarding this kind of projects.
Many thanks, Dr. Aklaki, for this encouraging news about the coming meeting of the Council of Permanent Representatives of ECO. We also looking forward to concluding this an extension of this MOU, and I will have a meeting on Monday to discuss all available options for signing this MOU. So we will be in touch with you, and let's work together for success of the signing MOU in the nearest future. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You to you as well.
Great, great. So we watched the presentation of Deputy Secretary General of ECO on trade and investment issues. You noted the great potential which we have for strengthening partnership with this organization. And next in my list of presenters, speakers, Ms. Sinlan Hu, who is the Principal Regional cooperation specialist, Central and West Asia Department at the Asian Development Bank. Asian Development Bank is our important partner. As you remember from the history, ESCAP, it was one of the founders of the Asian Development Bank, and now we have very good relations with ADB and its program Carib for Central Asian countries and other countries which is embracing now. So I would like to give the floor to you, Sinlan Hu. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Nicolay, and good afternoon to all. I would like to first thank the organizer for this opportunity to share experience of the Carib program on trade and investment in supporting the SDG17. And indeed, ADB and UN ESCAP has a long-standing partnership in support of the Carib program. To start, I will provide a very brief introduction of the Carib program. So the Central Asia Regional Economic Cooperation or Carib program is a partnership of 11 member countries and development partners working together to promote development through cooperation. Its membership overlaps with all the membership of ESCAP's North and Central Asia sub-region, except Armenia and the Russian Federation. In terms of investment, by end of 2020, Carib-related investments amount to around $39.3 billion that have helped establish multimodal transportation networks, increased energy trade and security, broken down trade barriers, and facilitated free movement of people and freight. The Carib 2030 strategy, adopted in 2017, aims to enhance Carib's role as a regional cooperation platform for shared and sustainable development through working with all development partners. It further pursues a broader agenda in support of the SDGs and the Paris Agreement on Climate Agenda. Trade is, as we all know, trade is an important means of achieving the SDG. The Carib program promotes trade expansion and economic diversification through the Carib Integrated Trade Agenda 2030. Keeping trade open and revitalizing global value chains will be crucial for post-pandemic recovery. So in consideration of the allocated time, so I will just highlight a few aspects that ADB, through partnership with other development partners that support the Carib countries in mitigating the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic in trade and investment. I think these measures have helped the recovery of trade in the region as presented by our ESCAP colleague. First, since 2020, in close partnership with the World Health Organization and other international organizations, ADB has provided budget support and emergency assistance, specifically COVID-19 pandemic response option and COVID-19 vaccine programs to help Carib countries mitigate the health, social, and economic impacts of the pandemic and to make necessary conditions for gradually relaxing the restrictions in travel and movement and restore economic activities, particularly cross-border economic activities. Second, to ensure no one is left behind, ADB has strengthened support for women and other vulnerable groups to facilitate women's access to economic opportunities and promote regional tourism development. In 2020, two new Carib strategies, the Carib Agenda Strategy 2030 and Tourism Strategy 2030, were adopted to promote gender equality through enhancing women's social empowerment and to promote safe and sustainable tourism in the region. So as we all know that tourism sector is among the hardest hit by the pandemic. So in 2021, two new Carib strategies, the Carib Health Strategy 2030 and the Carib Digital Strategy 2030 are being formulated to complement Carib countries' efforts in fostering post-pandemic recovery and growth, both with gender promotion included. Recently approved projects mostly include effective gender mainstreaming actions. So apart from gender equality, transport connectivity projects or incorporated new technologies to improve climate resilience and road safety. Energy efficiency through greening regional energy system is also actively promoted in energy projects. Third, ADB has been actively promoting and facilitating cross-border trade, including expediting passage and the release of goods and other essential supplies through simplified and paperless trade procedures. Effective July 2021, Mongolia joins Azerbaijan to the UN Convention on the Use of Electronic Communications in International Contracts, the UN Framework Agreement on Facilitation of Cross-Border Paperless Trade in Asia and the Pacific, of which Azerbaijan and the People's Republic of China are members, entered into force in February 2021. Digital TIR piloting projects are also being implemented in Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan. So all these measures will contribute to sustainable trade in the Carib region. So finally, on challenges and opportunities, COVID-19 continues to pose as a great threat to the sustainable recovery and growth of the Carib region. So strengthen the coordination and the collaboration among all development partners are significant to build back better, as this has been emphasized by all the presenters. So CARIC will continue to promote an open and inclusive regional cooperation platform that strengthens partnership for cross-border knowledge sharing and for regional connectivity for shared and sustainable development in the region. That's all from me, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Sinlan Hu, for focusing on sustainable recovery and the growth, which assistance provided by ADB for North and Central Asian countries, members of CARIC program. It's really very impressive. Thank you very much. Next in my list of speakers is Mr. Kuat Zhaldebekov. He is head of investment promotion department at Kazakh Invest, and he has intensive experience in international cooperation, export promotion, and regional development, working in different governmental structures of Kazakhstan. Over to you, Kuat.
Thank you very much, Nikolai. Good afternoon, and thank you for the floor. I'm glad to welcome everyone to this site. And let me take this opportunity to talk about investment potential of Kazakhstan. Now, after restrictions by COVID, we are seeing that increase in the inflow of direct investment compared to 2020. So, as you know, today Kazakhstan offers new opportunities and great potential for profitable business, thanks to strategic location, business-friendly environment, investors' right protection, and investment incentives. We have direct access to the market for more than 5 million consumers, including Central Asian markets, Western China, and Caspian Sea countries. Kazakhstan plays the key role in implementation of the One Belt, One Road initiative. All the 3,000 kilometers of the mainland corridor passes through our territory. So new routes from China to Europe significantly reduce freight delivery time. As such, freight transit time through Kazakhstan is about 15 days, which is 3 times faster by the sea. So during last 30 years, Kazakhstan attracted over $360 billion of FDI. So in Kazakhstan, investors' rights are given priority and protection at the highest level now. So the Foreign Investors Council in Kazakhstan is chaired by the President of the Republic of Kazakhstan. Also, the Investment Council has been established under the chairmanship of the Prime Minister. Additionally, the launch of the card at the Astana International Financial Center and the International Arbitration Center is an important initiative to ensure the rule of law and investors' rights protection. So in order to quickly resolve problematic issues of investors, the Prime Minister of the Kazakhstan performs the functions of the investment ombudsman. So in accordance with the global best practices in attracting investment, we have 13 special economic zones that provide established infrastructure and a wide range of investment preferences. The special economic zones are located all over Kazakhstan. We also have 27 industrial zones. If you talk about the new tools, how to attract investment in Kazakhstan, I would like to mention that in January 2021, the government of Kazakhstan amended a new state support tool, investment agreement for investment projects with the value exceeding $50 million. Now investors have the opportunity to directly conclude an investment agreement with the government. The investment agreement defines the types of investment, preferences, conditions, and procedures that they provision. The provisions of the investment agreement remain in effect for 25 years from the date of its conclusion in case of any changes in legislation of the Republic of Kazakhstan. By the way, it takes only 1 day to start a business in Kazakhstan and 3 days to register a property. Now I would like to briefly talk about the principal activities of my organization, Kazakh Invest. The board of directors of Kazakh Invest is headed by the Prime Minister, and the company is the sole authority dealing with all FDI negotiations on behalf of government. Having a network of regional and foreign representatives, we provide a full range of services to support investment projects on the one-stop shop principle, from an initial idea to implementation, as well as during the post-investment period. Our task is to ensure smooth and clear implementation of investment projects in Kazakhstan. Also, we developed investment proposals for flagship projects within the priority sectors. Currently, there are more than 160 investment proposals that we offer to investors who are looking to invest in Kazakhstan. The investment proposals include a business plan, financial model, feasibility study, and project structuring. They are prepared by the consulting company Deloitte. So the list of the investment proposals helps investors to navigate through the vast opportunities that Kazakhstan has to offer. And all of these projects are available on the Kazakh Invest website. Thank you for this opportunity. and good luck to everyone.
Thank you, Kuat, very much for very interesting information on the activities of Kazakhstan in these trade and investment areas, and great export and investment potential for cooperation with Kazakhstan in these areas. Thank you very much. Really very interesting and very impressive. And thank you. And now I would like also to give the floor to our another good partner from Eurasian Economic Commission, my good friend Dmitry Yezhov. He is head of International Cooperation Division of Eurasian Economic Commission, Integration Development Department. Over to you, Dmitry. You are muted. You are muted.
Okay, now I think everything is okay. Dear Nikolai, dear session participants, greetings from Moscow, from the headquarters of the Eurasian Economic Commission. And at our today's session on Partnership for the Goals, I am happy to share with you some information on what is the current progress within the Eurasian Economic Union's region on achieving SDG17. And the Eurasian Economic Union that unites 5 countries, Armenia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Russia, and its regulatory body, Eurasian Economic Commission, pay great attention to the issues of promoting the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. And the Treaty on the Eurasian Economic Union, our fundamental document for our integration, constitute the law of the Eurasian Economic Union and covers all 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And the focus of our today's session is the SDG17, Partnership for the Goals. And the question here is what we mean by the partnership, and especially in the context of the regional integration processes in the world. And first of all, the Eurasian Economic Union itself is the partnership between 5 member countries. Thus, I will give you some understanding on how this partnership works internally and what results we have achieved. And secondly, the Eurasian Economic Union also managed to build effective partnerships outside its territorial borders with its neighboring countries and with different regional integration associations. So let me proceed and speak a little bit about the first dimension, the so-called the partnership itself. And as we know, and as we pointed out in the concept note of our discussion, we should speak about trade and investment. And we have really good examples and good figures and data on trade and investment within the Eurasian Economic Union. For example, in 2009, the volume of the internal trade between our member states was about $36 billion. When we speak about today's figures, it is about $55 billion. And we should point out that the greatest integration effects was in Armenia. The volume of export of goods from the country to other member states increased during 5 years almost 3 times. The second place is for our other member states, Kyrgyzstan, an increase about 50%. Therefore, we can conclude that the trade interaction is the vivid example of our integration. And it is more noticeable for our new member states that joined the Union in 2015. Another important aspect is investment. The share of direct investment within the Union has increased by 43% starting from the year 2015, and now it is about $725 billion. And we should also point out that the integration is the priority for our member states, and all areas and all dimensions of our movements forward is included to our strategic document that has the name the Strategic Guidelines of the Eurasian Integration till 2025. And it is a really comprehensive document that covers all spheres of our integration, and this document is aimed at guidelines for our integration interaction till 2025. And there are, of course, lots of issues included to this document, but the main one is digitalization. This sphere covers all integration spheres, and it is the priority for our member states, and it is the priority not only for digitalization itself. We can see the effects of and interaction of this sphere into all integration aspects. And of course, this document, our strategic documents, strategic guidelines, calls for different mechanisms to achieve the goals, and one of them is promotion of industrial cooperation. It is one of the most important areas of the Union's development enshrined in the strategy. Previously, cooperation between the member states has been developing mainly on bilateral basis. But at the same time, the analysis carried out inter alia on the basis of integration experience of other successful integration associations showed that the significant step in cooperative development could be the creation of new mechanism for integration cooperation. Such a format can be, for example, creation of the so-called Eurasian companies that can create favorable conditions for the involvement of manufacturers in the international cooperation chain. Another mechanism to promote cooperation between our member states is the so-called import substituting industries. Russia is actively attracting manufacturers from other member states to participate in import substitution projects in industry. As of 2020, the list of such enterprises covered 17 industries in 62 technological areas. We have also, of course, another mechanism to promote from industrial cooperation and mutual trade. The first one is the digital investment platforms for the implementation of industrial infrastructure projects. Another mechanism is the Eurasian Fund for Stabilization and Development. Another one, especially for new member states, is the Russian Kyrgyz Development Fund. I also want to point out that the Sustainable Development Goal 17 is also aimed to help the so-called landlocked countries, and we have also landlocked countries within the member states of the Eurasian Economic Union. And our priorities and our aims in the sphere of infrastructure, transport, and other infrastructural areas is also aimed to assist landlocked countries and to give them more opportunities. And as I mentioned before, we can assess the partnerships not only as the cooperation within the union, but we can also say about the partnerships when we speak about the international cooperation of the Eurasian Economic Union and of the Eurasian Economic Commission. And we should stress that international activity of the Eurasian Economic Commission as the supranational regulatory body of the Eurasian Economic Union also contributes to the idea of partnerships. And we have a significant portfolio in this field. For example, we have several trade agreements with our partners. We have FTA with Vietnam. We have signed FTA with Singapore. We have an FTA with Serbia. We have trade agreements with Iran and China. So it is one part of our new mechanism in addition to mechanism that can be achieved by our member states at bilateral levels. We have also a broad network of ties, between the Eurasian Economic Commission with the foreign governments. We have about 20 MOUs, and this platform is really this platform is a really unique one that allows us as the Eurasian Economic Commission and our member states to speak directly on all issues transmitted to the supranational level and to discuss regulations, supranational regulations, and different aspects of technical regulations, customs administration with foreign governments on direct basis and regular basis. We can also say that integration and the option to have direct ties between the Eurasian Economic Union with other regional integration associations like ASEAN, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, Mercosur, Andean Community, and the Pacific Alliance is also unique opportunity to contribute to the Sustainable Development Goal number 17. I mentioned only main partners in terms of regional association blocks, and we feel that it is these ties, when we speak about regional integration associations, is the direct benefit of this cooperation. And I think that dialogue between regional blocks have really good prospects. It is the idea, this idea is widely discussed on different levels. Within the Eurasian region, we have different initiatives. One Belt, One Road initiative. We have another initiative launched by the Russian Federation, the Greater Eurasian Partnership. And all these initiatives, global initiatives, implies the direct communication, not only between the member states, member countries, national governments, but also between regional blocks. This summer, we discussed the contribution of regional integration to the sustainable development of the sidelines of ECOSOC high-level political forum. And discussion initiated by the Eurasian Economic Commission was supported by other regional blocs, ASEAN, the Pacific Alliance, and key national economies. And the results of our discussion proved that regional integration and the dialogue between them is the necessary prerequisite for real comprehensive approach to the Sustainable Development Goals number 17. So, dear colleagues, taking in mind the time limits, I want to finish my speech and really thank you for you and for organizers for such a fruitful discussion. And I hope that the materials and ideas discussed and announced by my previous co-speakers will be really interested and will be thoroughly investigated, not only in the Eurasian Economic Commission, but in other regional associations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dmitry, for very interesting statement on the activities of Eurasian Economic Commission in trade and investment areas. It's really very impressive, and on especially with regard to partnership strengthening. As far as your last speaker in my list in this session, I would like to use this opportunity and to ask you one question. What do you think? What is your vision about cross-border paperless trade agreement promoted by ESCAP, and if it is can help Eurasian Economic Commission members to facilitate trade among them, intra-regional trade and inter-regional trade as well. And another point regarding e-commerce, how e-commerce is promoted within Eurasian Economic Commission. Over to you, Dmitry.
Thank you, Nikolai. I should say that e-commerce is also this issue, first of all, is discussed discussed by the Eurasian Economic Commission special departments. And I think that the e-commerce is an integral part of to promote trade flows within the union. And as I know, there are lots of options how to investigate this issue and what aspects to choose. But I'm not I can't go into details because it is the competence of our departments within the Eurasian Economic Commission. But we always provide the platform to investigate best international practices, to include best practices to our supranational approaches in this field. And your first point regarding the initiatives and the initiatives provided by ESCAP, I should also discuss this topic with our appropriate department. Sorry.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dmitry, for your answer, sharing your views. Just for your information, I must tell you that we received requests from a number of North and Central Asia member states of ESCAP regarding the possible implementation of this framework paperless trade agreement of ESCAP and the influence on their internal trade. So among the members of Eurasian Economic Commission, we received such request from Kazakhstan for your information, just. Yeah, so okay, but I think we can discuss further on working level how we can cooperate in this regard and support Eurasian Economic Commission member states in using new tools and new agreements for strengthening their the trade and investment cooperation. Thank you very much once again. Colleagues, I have one more question for Quad. I received in written. If Quad is with us and could answer, I think it will be also very good for all participants. The question is, does investment environment legislation, regulatory framework in Kazakhstan encourage investments in local currency as well? So, Quad, over to you.
The answer is yes, because of, according to the policy of National Bank, all companies, they are very encouraged to invest in tenge, in national currency. Also, it's very profitable to take loans in tenge. So the short answer is yes.
Thank you very much.
There was also another question, according to. Do you see this question on the chat? A long one.
Yes, you can answer. Yeah, you can answer. You can. Yeah.
So the answer is nowadays, according to our strategy, we are going to diversify our economy. This is noticeable in the growth rates of investments in the manufacturing industry in recent years. So if we talk about competition between countries, of course, there is always competitions for investors, but I think it's a competition in the right way. And foreign investors always comes to the country where there are good conditions and political stability. So I think I could answer the question.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Quad. I think we have big scope for cooperation with Kazakhstan, with other member states in North and Central Asia in trade and investment. So, colleagues, I think we have a very good discussion, very good presentations on trade and investment in North and Central Asia, and discuss what opportunities we have and how we can enhance this cooperation in North and Central Asia. So the different organizations, as I mentioned, like ECO, like Carib ADB, like Kazinvest, Eurasian Economic Commission, they shared their best practice and experience in areas of trade and investment. And I think I will express a common opinion of all speakers and participants that we need to strengthen partnerships and cooperation in trade and investment area. And this trade and investment can serve as a driver for strengthening different areas of cooperation and connectivity in North and Central Asia. So this is the major message from our today's discussion. I think we come to the end of our time, and now we are coming back to groups, to subgroups, coming back, and we are coming back to session 8. And I think Atajan will continue as moderator. Thank you very much.